Admiral Bradley, who testified, said that the boat wasn't headed to the U.S. That was part of the predicate for this strike, that it was coming here and it was bringing fentanyl. It was bringing cocaine to Suriname, so actually in the opposite direction. The two men who were killed were clinging to a piece of wood like they were on the Titanic. They didn't have any communications devices. They weren't armed, and there's no evidence that the cocaine survived.
Doesn't it sound like the Maryland dad all over again?
But you know what? I do want to talk about the Maryland dad.
Of course.
Because the Maryland dad, you all sat here and you said you're out of your minds, right, for Chris Van Hollen going down there, and you made up the fake story about the margaritas and whatever. And Democrats said, we want to talk about how people are treated who, first of all, have legal status. We want to talk about due process. And where do we go from there? We found out what the type of conditions are that people are being treated who were being improperly sent to CCOT. We found out about American deals with Bukele, that we were actually forcing him to do this and wasn't comfortable with it.
No one cares.
We have found out now.
Just like that, the 5 segment is going to go off the rails.
You don't care,
No,
but Americans care.
Americans
Donald
don't
Trump,
care.
They
Country
do.
does not
Then why
care
is Donald
about a
Trump?
prison.
They care about their
Why is
relatives
Donald-
dying from drugs.
Why is Donald Trump
They care
underwater
about their
on
jobs.
immigration
He's not
now?
underwater, Jessica.
Yes,
They don't
he
care
is.
about
You just
drug
don't like any
dealers.
polls that aren't
Did you know that the Coke boat strikes are the most popular foreign policy action that Donald Trump has taken?
Then run on it. No health care plan,
We will.
no affordability plan. We shoot
pivoting.
random people in the Caribbean.
That's what I
We're
just, that was
coming
my
up
point.
with a health care plan.
Oh, I'll be waiting.
We'll have it
Okay.
tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, I'll be waiting for that health care plan.
Isn't this a perfect encapsulation of everything wrong with right-wing media? Even when presented with facts and given more than enough opportunities to denounce the extrajudicial killings of foreign nationals, these ghouls refuse to say or do anything that might anger their dear leader. Just take a look at what Jesse Waters said before Tarlov tried to set him and her fellow co-host straight.
And they went in there saying it was a war crime, and then they left saying, So the story's over. This is such a bigger story. This Coke boat thing's the appetizer. We just had 2 U.S. jets violate Venezuelan airspace, and we're seizing oil tankers off their coast. This is much bigger than one strike against a vessel. This is a huge change in American foreign policy. We are the biggest superpower of the world, and we can project enormous power all over the world, but we don't do it in our own hemisphere. And as of now, that has changed. This is now a goal to dominate Latin America. They have mineral wealth, they have oil wealth, and we have Russia and China screwing around there. And the cartels are so out of control that it's causing mass migration into the United States, which brings guns, it brings drugs, and it lowers American wages.
And there you have it. Waters didn't even try to hide the real reasons and his excitement for the military's intervention in the Caribbean and Latin America. And when you hear him speak, a lot of his rhetoric reminds you of the rhetoric that we heard, right, that we saw being used in the lead up to the Iraq War. And I'm talking specifically the comments regarding, foreign terrorists, drug cartels, oil, rare earth minerals, and so on and so forth. This is not by accident. This is by design, okay? Very much by design. Just for some additional context on how this narrative has been crafted by the Trump administration and Fox News in the months since the start of these boat strikes and the recent seizing of a Venezuelan oil tanker, take a look at these clips spanning from early September to right now.
It's all part of a bigger plan that President Trump has, which is to go after the drug cartels that are poisoning Americans with fentanyl and with the gun trafficking and the gangbangers and ruining our security in our cities. So it's all part of the same deal. And when he's sending those destroyers to the region, he's showing gunboat diplomacy. Like, remember, Maduro, we have a lot of capabilities here that you don't have.
Americans are dying. Yesterday, President Trump, he took decisive action to keep Americans safe from the vile scourge of fentanyl. He blew up a boat filled with drugs that were coming from Venezuela. He took 11 narco-terrorists out with it. And, of course, the left freaked out online. Liberal commentators calling the move pure gangsterism.
It's the 400,000 Americans who have died of fentanyl. 400,000 daughters, sons, brothers, sisters not here because an attack, I'm going to call it an attack, on the United States, drug smuggling across our border and over our seas.
They're calling Trump a murderous bully and a war criminal for taking out terrorists. Obama droned an American citizen. No comment. Biden wiped out 7 innocent kids in Afghanistan. Crickets. But Trump sinks a boat full of narcos with enough fentanyl to kill a small city. and they want to bring him to The Hague. That speedboat was full of killers heading to our coast. That's an enemy attack. Trump neutralized it. Are Democrats going to be pro-cartel now because Trump's killing them?
Hitting narco-terrorists before they traffic their deadly drugs into the United States, good. And now President Trump has them looking over their shoulders, over the horizon, and up in the sky. Because for once, they're running scared. No more free passes into the U.S. using boats to smuggle fentanyl and other deadly junk into our country. So now, instead of open waters, it's open season on the cartels.
Yeah, Pete Hegseth said about what we're looking at now, every boat that we strike is 25,000 American lives that have been saved. We're talking about, Lawrence, fentanyl pills. We're talking about fentanyl powder, illegal guns, methamphetamine, cocaine, pounds of heroin.
So for the first time, we had the president explain everything through. He even said, you know, you keep asking for the Secretary of War to come to Congress. I don't care. He can come to Congress. You're going to have to choose a side. Are you going to be on the side of the cartels, which is the new ISIS, or are you going to be side of the American people?
I do not believe they care. I refuse to invest any amount of caring on those people on the boat because they are terrorists. If you have not developed the hoax instinct after the last 10 years and your reflex is still to say, wow, this sounds really bad, you need a reverse lobotomy. It'd be great to kill a terrorist while he's terrorizing, but what are the odds of that? He's either running to terrorize or running away from terrorizing. You're going to have to, maybe it's going to take 2 strikes. In bowling, they call it a spare. I'm okay with that. But the process of enacting terror still makes you a terrorist, still makes you worthy of death, especially if you're dealing with weapons of mass destruction, the way drugs are. Of course, they're going to say, but what if they were a fisherman? You could say the same thing about terrorists. What if those terrorists were fishermen? True, maybe they are terrorists. Maybe we made a mistake. But they're pretty confident that they aren't.
Watching those Fox hosts openly cheering on and celebrating the completely unnecessary deaths of all these people is repulsive and so gross, and it just shows you how they have 0 hearts, right? They have no compassion. They have no empathy. They don't know what empathy looks like. They're heartless individuals. And it's this notion in their head that, yeah, if it isn't happening, you know, to my family or people that I care about, I don't care. I encourage it, right? I'm celebrating it. It just shows you their worldview is completely fractured and grotesque, right? And how they view others and people who are not Americans. And Americans that line up with their ideas, right, and agendas. Because we know there are plenty of Americans who they would have no problem seeing being killed, right, or die because of their views and their political views. But again, they're doing this on national television, cheering on and celebrating the deaths of all these people. Yeah, y'all need therapy. Y'all need therapy badly. For Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.